go. Hi there, friends. This is Brad James with Sketchy Ideas, the live video counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate, debate things surrounding business, leadership, personal development, crazy business ideas, sometimes movies, and weird topical things. But the point of this is to help you make sure you think twice before you implement that brand new crazy idea you just found on the interwebs. Again, I am Brad James.
And I'm Michael Rampola. I'm the crazy part of the crazy ideas. We're glad you're here.
And we are your hosts. Today, we're going to dive into continuing our conversation from last week where we talked about metrics and value of those metrics and all of those cool things in terms of how you can actually identify and build out some sort of value engine with accountability layered on top of it. But before we do that, let's get a word from our sponsors. Over to you, Michael.
Sketchy Ideas is powered by Spirity. There is value in your data. You know it. I know it. You just might not know where to look for it. Spirity is the one application-driven business transformation system that will enable you to find the patterns in your data, which will lead you to the value, which will grow your business. The work to take you from foundation to growth and from growth to scale is already been done for you. Let us help you apply that to your business because we know what you need to get you where you want to go. And it all comes down to asking you the right questions because you actually already have the answers. And isn't that exciting? Reach out to us at spirity.com and we will be happy to ask you lots of questions. Over to you, Brad.
So obviously all of us need a little help when we're running our business, especially when it comes to marketing and sales and all of that good stuff. You don't have to do it alone, whether it's content creation, blog creation, managing a website, building a website, doing those things, but you have to get the right message in front of the right people. My friends over at Cream City Marketing have helped a lot with that in all of my businesses. So do me a favor, reach out to Erin at creamcitymarketing.com. She too will ask you a bunch of questions and then give you some advice on how we can help you reach your business goals, especially if you've already been working with Michael. So that being said, we're off. All right. So last week we dove into talking about data and how to track data. And we used the analogy of baseball in terms of batting average versus on-base percentage plus slugging. So looking at the different types of data that we have access to in everything we do. So in sales, we talked about if you're a sales rep, mark a break. If you're a sales rep, you're going to be tracking your activity. Your sales activity leads to activity in terms of sales meetings and the types of meetings. And each of those types of meetings has a point value. And by tracking your initial outreach activity along with the sales meeting activity with the points, you then generate metrics around revenue and how to get to revenue. So for example, in a lot of industries, they will say, hey, 200 dials will get you 20 to 40 meetings a week. Those 20 to 40 meetings a week will turn into potentially 10 of those meetings that you have, 3 of them turn into fact finders. Those fact finders, out of those fact finders, one of them closes and becomes a client or buys something. That's been like the industry standard for a while. The challenge is tracking that is not directly correlative to your sales activity. You actually have to track the middle set of metrics, and you actually have to layer on value metrics on top of that in order to better understand how to achieve your conversions on the back end. So today, Michael and I were trying to figure out, okay, how do we help people with this? A lot of talk these days is around value engines, and value engines specifically with things like customer value journey, or how you take customer value journey and drop it into marketing funnels, or any number of those types of things. So Michael's actually, you're drawing pictures. Tell us what you're drawing there, because I want to make sure that I'm following your stream of thought rather than just rambling over here like
highly educated monkey.
Idiot.
I would never call you that.
I said idiot, but one and the same.
Same issue. So okay, we said batting average is not the same as scoring, right? Sales activity is not the same necessarily as revenue, and it's this not necessarily. Can you get revenue without sales activity? Harder to do. It's all about what is the activity. How do we get from one end to the other? And we said value engines. People call this a lot of things, right? Like just like what Brad was saying. Your funnel is now an engine. I found that when I was doing some research. I'm like, cool. Is it doing the same thing? Yeah, basically, right? It's an engine, it's a funnel, it's a stream, it's a map, it's a journey. It's a journey, right? Because it sounds more epic. I don't care what you call it, right?
I mean, yeah.
I really don't. I care. Do you know how to get from here to there with the numbers? You know how the two things work together? And do you know what's working and what's not? If you know what's working, what's not, and if you don't see how the front end activity leads to the back end results, then you can call it whatever you want to call it. But if it isn't getting the value, then it doesn't.
So what you're saying is that at every step of this journey, you need to be adding value to a customer, and that's what turns into cash flow in the back end. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because if I'm not adding value to you at every touch, you have no reason to go to the next one, right? If this was not a good meet, like, okay, if you're doing sales meetings, and if I didn't give you something valuable in that meeting, why would you come to the next one? Why would you take my next call? If I'm not doing anything helpful to you, you got other things to do with your time. So if I am not always thinking about how do I help you, then you're going to go talk to somebody else or do something else, because everything you're doing in your business, in your life, is trying to make it better, grow it, scale it, add more value, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
So therefore, if I'm not a part of that priority for you, then I'm out, right? I'm out.
So in
I need to be helping you do your thing every time. What's that?
So in sales, we typically tell people you're not going to make the sale in the close. The sale is actually made in the fact finder, because that's where you're adding value. So when I coach teams, I go, look, your initial contact, you're going to generate a ton of questions and get a bunch of answers as if it's an interrogation of a potential client. But by asking those questions, you can generate value literally in two basic ways. By asking the better questions, you're getting them to think about different things that they haven't thought about, or you're leaving time for a little bit of question answer to leverage your expertise in that fact finder. That way you can understand specifically what they're looking for. And that's where, if you really want to get good at this and drive referrals, then you end up asking what question at the end, Michael? Pop quiz.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
What do I always ask?
Which part of this conversation has been most helpful to you?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well done.
Hey, you. I've been paying attention, and Brad, I have been using. So here's what's interesting. Brad dropped that in a conversation that we were doing. We were doing a joint sales call on a project, and he dropped that question in, and I go, ooh. And the answer back was phenomenal. And I said, I love the question. I do it in coaching all the time, but I just never thought to apply it to my sales process. I do it once I've got the ongoing relationship. In the coaching world, the question is, and this is a spirity tactic. I learned this one from Darren. It's, what's your key takeaway from this conversation? Or what's your number one takeaway from this conversation? From a coaching perspective, it has them telling me that they got value out. Wouldn't it be great, back to your point about when do I actually win the deal? Wouldn't it be great if the client was reminded, the prospect was reminded, that there was something really important or valuable that we did in this conversation? Put it at the end of the conversation, and guess what they're thinking about? When can I get some more of that?
Yes.
And it tells me, whatever I did, that was good. I make sure I do that one again.
Yeah. And it's important. It's important to look at it from the standpoint of, if you're having a discussion, every conversation, especially where we're at in the world right now, and I'm saying from a noise standpoint, there are a lot of conversations happening. Many of those conversations are not actually adding value. And this goes back to the whole, you're seeing 15, thousands of ads every day
Right.
and how many of those ads are actually adding value. This is where we can begin to dissect value engine specifically in customer value journey, where ads no longer are about adding value, but the value that's added typically in that moment in time is a jolt away from normalcy, and it triggers one of the hormonal things or one of the chemical things in your brain to go, hey, that was super interesting and exciting or funny or whatever. That's the value that's added in that initial touch. So even those types of things where we don't think there's actually value being added, there is value being added. It's just an unseen value, right? So that's why ad campaigns. So if we think about some of the great ad campaigns that are out there right now, or some of the greatest ones, they emote an emotion that person is not feeling in that instant. That emotional shift or that mental shift from that ad is what is adding value to that person in that moment in time. And that's what causes the remembrance. So that's why it's now, you have to put that out there 13 times and they have to connect with your brand 13 times before they start making a buying decision, rather than what it used to be, which is 7. Because those emotional triggers, and you keep showing up and you keep showing up. So there's a number of things we do at Cream City Marketing, like our repurposing process, where people always ask the question, well, why do you want to create so much content? And often the answer is that if you're creating the content and you're repurposing it, get it out there as much as possible, because they have to connect with it. And not everything you put out there, everybody's going to connect with the same way. So you have to get more times out there, or we're using batting analogy, get more times up to bat in order to get a chance to get them to pull into your customer value journey. Because you're going to emote different things at different times, and different triggers are going to pull different things on different days based on the mood of how I am in that day, or you are in that day, or maybe the conversations that are happening outside of me that day that I'm hearing. So when you look at this whole idea of value engines, it is end to end in the sales process. And then once they become a client, it continues. So you're looking at different triggers along the way. And Michael, tell me if I'm wrong, but like when you're working through clients on this type of idea, right? Whether it's somebody who's running a retail store, or somebody who has, I know you're working with some people I'm drawing a blank. Give me one and it'll probably trigger the next one. What's another?
Retail, e-commerce, financial planning.
Financial planning. That's what I was thinking. So when you're working with those clients, that's a very, what I would consider a dull industry for the most part, just because it's a legacy industry and a lot of it is commoditized.
Right.
Value engines are so important to those small businesses because your brand and your value comes from you mostly, but then you layer it with the processes that you're implementing. And the only way that you can make sure that value is added once you've implemented that process is through accountability and the value additions of those metrics.
Absolutely. Right? If I know what matters, but I'm not doing the right behaviors, then I'm not moving down the journey, the path, the stream, whatever. If I'm not ensuring, checking and verifying that I'm putting value in at every step, no wonder I'm not getting to those next steps. No wonder there seems to be a hole in my funnel, or a gap in my journey, or a whatever. Insert your metaphor here. That's why you need to know what is the metric that moves me from here to there. What is the value I must add at this moment to get me to the next step, or at least significantly increase the likelihood of getting to the next step. And if I'm not tracking, did I do the thing I knew I needed to do? And did it get me the result I expect? If I'm not paying attention to that, I am missing it. And I'm going to be self-aware for a moment. I had a lot of sales activity in the first half of the year. Did not have a lot of revenue. Look at my calendar, plenty full. And so we broke down, we actually looked back at some of my sales calls, and my business partner and coach, Darren, he said, "You're not following the process." I said, "What do you mean I'm not following the process?" I said, "Look, I've got all these sales calls." He goes, "Yeah, but when you get in that call, you're not following the process." I said, "Like, of course I am." Like, "No, you're not." And we literally like went through one together. He goes, where did you do this and this and this? The things that we know move us to the next stage. I'm like, oh, I totally didn't do those things. Completely missed it. I was shifting to some kind of a marketing mindset, which for my subconscious, I went back and analyzed, like, why was I not following the process? Apparently, I was having a moment of hubris. For those not paying attention, see also Oedipus. I was having a moment of hubris, which said, listen, our product's so great. If I just make you think I'm awesome, you'll want to buy it. As long as I don't even have to like sell you or tell you that we actually sell what I do. I'm just going to give you a 30-minute like blow your mind session without holding anything back and without asking for the next step of the sale. I'm sure that will work. Weird. Totally didn't work. I was off the process and like called me on it. Thank you. Then I locked back in on the process, and just like I had 5 contracts out in a week. Mm-hmm. Because the process works, because we had already done this. We knew already, that's why our sales process is built the way it is. We knew what goes from here to there every single time consistently, because we're all about the data. So I was literally not following the data. And fortunately, I had a coach who held me accountable, and he said, I see your front end activity. I don't see your back end revenue. And I said, yeah, I don't know what to do about that. It's weird. I was just like not getting it, lacking self-awareness. But my accountability partner dug in and pushed in anyway, which thank him for that. And he just went and looked at and analyzed what was happening and said, you're missing the process. No wonder.
So how do you find those metrics, right? Like, so for you,
right.
Tell me about the process around or the pieces you're looking at to move from one to the next to the next.
Absolutely. So let me just pretend that any one thing right here, right? Take any step in your map journey, etc., and look at both the wins and the losses. We say successes and failures. You're going to analyze. You're going to analyze. You have to look at both successes and failures and break them down. And you're going to see what is the trend among the successes, what is the trend among the failures. And there's always a trend. If you look at the data, there's always a trend. It might not be what you expect it to be. More often than not, it's not, but it is there. When you find it, you say, okay, when I do this, I succeed. When I do that, I don't. I need to do more of this. Now, I'm making it sound simple, but how do I dig into the details? That's the work that we do every day with all of our clients, is we help them analyze and dig past what's obvious to what's really there. And it's a little bit different for every person, but it requires having enough data and enough awareness to know that there's a chance for me to succeed at every turn if I'm willing to dig in and find out what makes it work.
So what are the steps you took though to analyze like successes and failures, or wins and losses in that instant, that small step? What is the process you go through?
I go through the process and I literally look at which worked. So, and I had to break down what do I want the desired outcome to be? And I got down to not the desired outcome is the sale. What was the desired outcome from this step to next step? In this case, let's say it was request. I hope that they are asking me for how much does it cost? That's my win. My win is if they ask how much it costs, they're thinking about buying. So I looked for the times that they did ask that question, the times that they didn't ask that question. And I looked at specifically, if you're going to pick one or the other, focus on successes, because failures could be a dozen, 20, 100 reasons here. The only ones that really count are the ones that work, because this tells me what's working. You're going to get a lot of reps over here. You need a lot of reps over here to get enough data in the success column to know where the trend is. So you need a lot. You'll get enough here, and they'll say, okay, when I do A, B, and C, they ask. So I need to make sure I'm doing it. When I don't do X, Y, and Z, they ask. And that was the thing. I was giving away too much value. Back to our conversation about why, how, and what, right? Keep the how out. I was putting the how in, and no wonder they weren't asking for the next step. They'd already gotten everything they thought they needed.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
That is, and that's a critical point, just in terms of specifically for the sales value ladder, and literally anything that is customer facing and driven. If you give away everything all at once, people are going to look at you and you're going to go, great, I'm adding all this value. People love me. They want to talk to me. You're probably going to get some business because people just want to pay you because they know that you're doing a good job. But you're going to get more people who come to you and go, hey, can we grab coffee? And you're like, great, sales meeting, right? Like client facing, he's like, no, let's just grab coffee, because they know that you're just going to give them the answers.
Totally. So I definitely had some of those too. Absolutely was part of what wasn't working.
And I think it goes not only in like coaching or services, but it also goes into in retail or in e-com or in software or in anything. So in SaaS, software as a service, there's always the fine balance, right? So most of us, when we look at software, you're looking at the three columns, the three options, because 3 is typically the magic number these days. Column 1, column 2, column 3. Sometimes there's a fourth one, but it's typically the middle column is what gives you everything you want. They typically leave out the one thing that makes it worthwhile in order to go up. So then they add it in, and then they add a whole bunch of other stuff that makes sense. And then they know the equation based on the features that they've given you, that, well, if I get that, I might as well just get the next thing, because these other 4 benefits down on the bottom, or 4 features, essentially don't work fully unless I get feature number 5, which is in top of the next column. So, and here's the deal. I'm a believer, and for those of you, if you're watching this and you're not a business owner and you're like, that's sketchy and that's why we don't buy stuff, I go, wrong. You do. You're just not keeping track of it. Okay?
It's true.
You ever wondered why hot dogs are sold in what? Eighths and buns are sold in tens, right? Like, there's a reason for that. Okay? It's the same idea. It's the same reason why when you look at like McDonald's, right? Or you go to the fast food restaurants, you notice, why is the burger so cheap, but the fries are more? Well, it's the same idea, because they know in their head that you're not going to get a burger without fries most of the time. And then if you get fries, you're probably going to want to drink with it, because the fries are so darn salty that you're going to have to wash it down with something. So you might as well just get the value meal, because then you get a late discount on the fries, and you get the soft drink, and the soft drink literally takes them probably a fraction of a penny to serve you. And they charge you basically $1 for it. So the margins on it well overcome what they're selling you on the burger. Yep. So there's a value engine there too. Okay. That value engine, the motivator is health, right? Because you need to eat, even though it's not always the case. But when you're looking at this stuff, Michael, building this out, getting it put together, why is it so important to like build accountability into these processes, especially if you're a growing company, right? And you're trying to figure out how to scale. So accountability is key in this value engine, and having your metrics figured out. Well, can you walk us through, at least like introduce us to this idea of accountability layered on top of this value engine, and maybe why it's so critical to figure this out?
Absolutely. I mean, and I'll actually go to my own example, right? Without accountability, I would literally not have known or really been encouraged to go look into why my process wasn't working. Because I had somebody besides me who cared as much about my goals as I did, asking me, why is what you're doing not working? And I admitted, I don't know, I'm doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing. My lack of self-awareness required accountability to break through it. Right? We knew what the correct activities were. We'd done the data analysis. We knew what success looked like. So did I. But without accountability, somebody else keeping an eye on things for me, whether that's a system or a person, in place before the activity. And that's, I think, the key. It's the accountability is built in when you build the engine, the journey, the stream. So that if you are ever off course, it knocks you back, or it should catch you soon enough. Right. This is why there are guardrails on a racetrack. This is why there is nets under trapeze artists. At least I think that's why. The point is, when it's time for the accountability, if you build it when you need it, it's too late.
Yep.
Right. Most businesses don't have crisis management plans until their first crisis. It's the wrong time to build a crisis management plan.
Story for another time.
And it's not just yours. Speaking of self-awareness, so accountability needs to be built in. You can build it into the metrics, into the systems, into the data. It should be there also. But because we are humans, it probably helps to have another human in the accountability seat, or at least keeping an eye on the accountability dashboard, if you will.
So you're talking about a mentor or an advisor?
Not not necessarily, right? There's a lot of people now. If I'm going to be a successful person, right, I need to surround myself with all the right kind of people. We often say, look at the best athletes. Okay, we just got done with the Olympics, right? The best athletes, the elite athletes, have multiple coaches. And then they have other people doing things like mentorship and doing things like managing their schedule. If you're going to be a successful elite top anything, you need multiple people around you doing the other things that need to be done so you can be in your right seat doing your right things. So do you need a mentor? Yes. Do you need an accountability coach? Yes. Do you need a manager? Yes. Do you need a support team? Yes. You need all of those things. And they're different skill sets, and therefore you need more people. It takes a lot to put me here today looking this, I'm not going to say pretty, looking like this, right? It takes a village, if not an army and a team. And therefore, if I eschew that, if I avoid that or don't put it in place in advance, right, then I am not putting myself in the best position to be successful, leveraging and doing what I do best.
Yeah.
I was talking with my mom the other day about how is that little thing you do on Wednesdays, right? Like, my mom, she's probably watching, and I'm giving her a hard time. She actually is very interested in, like, how does that all work? And I said, well, the producer goes, you have a producer? I said, of course. So we didn't have a producer, we probably wouldn't have two. If we didn't have producers, we probably wouldn't have a show. I said, my job is to show up and be mildly entertaining. Brad's job is to show up and be smart. And then we have producers that make sure that we show up so we can do those things.
I'm just the pretty face.
Somebody has to be.
So we're running out of time. So I want to talk about that more next week in terms of mentors and advisors who do that versus like coaches, experts, and other people that you might bring on. Because I think that's really important to talk further about the differences and why you need both. But at the same point in time, what is the difference between the two and how to identify the differences? I think we'll do that next time.
Next time.
And we're actually running out of time today, friends. Michael and I, believe it or not, both have sales meetings coming up here short. So we are trying to
have accountability and being in the right place at the right time. Yeah, right.
Yes. So with that, I do want to remind you, we do have the Sketchy soiree coming up here. It will be coming up. Look for info coming out. We've got some great people coming to join us to talk about sales, finance, marketing, branding, coaching and accountability, systems, tools, all that stuff. We're putting it together. It will be our initial beta event. So I know our team's having some fun putting that together. So it'll also be really fun. So keep an eye out. We actually did, believe it or not, I'm going to throw this out there, even though I don't think the website's up yet. Sketchyevents.com will be the URL. So write it down. If you go, there's probably nothing there right now, but it'll be there.
You got it.
Wait, keep coming back. And we're going to have some great things at the Sketchy soiree. It will be our first event, so there will be a lot of feedback that we're trying to work with because we're trying to make this work for not only you watching this, but a whole bunch of other people to jam pack a bunch of stuff literally into half a day so that it makes sense based on where you're at in your business. So until then, wait for us for next week. We're going to go over mentorship and advisors versus experts and coaches. We're going to have that debate. We're going to figure out what's best and what's the best mix. And it'll probably be left up to you. But until next time, I am Brad James.
And I'm Michael Rampola.
And remember, just because it is a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. We'll see you next week, Wednesday, same time, same place.